Millionaire dared a janitor to translate a text in Chinese and froze when he heard the reply. Michael Peterson hurried down the white corridors of Mercy Medical Center, the most expensive hospital in New York. His mind buzzed with numbers from the meeting he'd just had with Chinese investors, and arrogance seeped into every step he took across the gleaming floor. That's when he spotted the man in a blue uniform mopping ahead of him, a janitor around 55 years old, with graying hair and hands calloused from labor. Irritation flared inside Michael as he had to step aside. "Excuse me," Michael snapped, expecting the man to move quickly. The janitor looked up, politely stepped aside and bowed his head in respect. That submissive gesture stirred something cruel in the businessman. He remembered the papers in his briefcase, important documents from his negotiations. Michael stopped and pulled out one of the sheets. It was a contract covered in Chinese characters, given to him by the investors. A malicious idea crossed his mind. "Hey, you," he called out to the janitor, who had already moved several feet away. The man turned back, walking with slow, careful steps. "Yes, sir." "Take a look at what I have here." Michael waved the paper in the air. "It's a text in Chinese. I bet you have no idea what it says, do you?" The janitor glanced at the paper, then at Michael, confused about where this was going. "I'll make a game with you," Michael continued with a mocking smile. "If you can translate what's written here, I'll give you a generous tip. How about that?" He tossed the paper onto the floor right at the janitor's feet. "Go on, pick it up and tell me what it says. If you can, of course." The hallway was empty at that time of the afternoon. Only the two men stood there, separated by far more than just a few feet. The janitor looked down at the paper. His hands trembled slightly as he bent to pick it up. Michael crossed his arms, expecting to see defeat on the simple man's face. But what happened next left him completely frozen. The janitor held the paper carefully, and after a few seconds examining the characters, began to speak in a clear, measured voice. "My dear son, I know I chose to leave without looking back, but not a single day has passed when I haven't thought of you. Pride kept us apart, but a father's love remains untouched in my heart. Forgive me for leaving." Michael felt his blood run cold. That voice, there was something familiar in it, something that unearthed a long-buried memory. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. The businessman took a step back, his face draining of color. His eyes locked onto the man before him, studying every line of his aged face, every mark left by time. How do you know Chinese?" Michael asked, his voice strained. The janitor folded the paper carefully and handed it back. "I learned a long time ago when I was younger. I was a university professor before everything changed." "A professor?" Michael repeated, dizziness washing over him. "A professor of Eastern languages. I had a passion for teaching, you know. I believed knowledge could transform lives." The man paused, looking directly into Michael's eyes, "until someone very important to me said it was a waste of time." Michael leaned against the wall for support. Fragments of memories began piecing together in his mind like a long shattered puzzle. "I know you," he whispered. "Of course you know me, Michael. I'm your father." The silence that followed seemed to echo through the empty hallways. Michael looked at the man who had become a stranger, dressed in a blue janitor's uniform, holding a bucket and a rag in his calloused hands. "Robert?" he finally said, using the name he hadn't spoken in over 20 years. "Robert Peterson, your father." The man confirmed it with a calm voice, but his eyes revealed deep pain. Michael remembered that terrible day 23 years ago. He had been just 16 when he last confronted his father. Robert had been laid off from the university due to budget cuts and was struggling financially. Michael, still a teenager but already filled with the ambition he'd inherited from his mother, had exploded in anger. "I told you you were a failure," Michael murmured, the words sharp as blades. "I said I was ashamed of you." "And you said you never wanted to see me again," Robert finished calmly. "And you left, walked out and never came back." Robert nodded slowly. "You were right. I was a failure as a provider. Your mother was building her business empire and I only knew how to teach dead languages to students who didn't respect me. Why did you come back? Michael asked, still in shock. I never left, son. I've always been here in New York, working, surviving. I just didn't know how to come home after what happened. Michael thought of his mother, Elizabeth Peterson, the woman who had built the empire he now ran. She never spoke of Robert after he left, as if he had simply ceased to exist. My mother, she told me you were dead. Robert lowered his eyes. To her, maybe I was. When a man can't support his family, when he loses his own son's respect, maybe it's easier to pretend he doesn't exist. But you work here, at the hospital? How long? Almost 10 years. I started right after... Robert hesitated, as if the words weighed too much. Right after I found out where you worked. I wanted to be close, even if you didn't know. A mix of anger and confusion surged through Michael. You were watching me, spying on me. No, son. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. That you'd become the successful man you always wanted to be. And what did you see? Michael asked bitterly. Robert looked at his son for a long moment. I saw a powerful man, respected, wealthy, exactly what you dreamed of being. He paused. But I also saw someone who became a lot like the person who once despised me. Michael felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. How dare you judge me? You're a janitor. And you're my son, Robert replied simply. A son I never stopped loving, even after everything. Love? Michael laughed bitterly. Where was that love when I needed a strong father? When my mother was working day and night to support us, while you dreamed over your useless books? Robert absorbed each word like a lash. You're right. I spoke like a father but acted like a failure. I deserve your anger. Robert's calm response only fueled Michael's rage. You deserve more than anger. You deserve contempt. You abandoned your family. I didn't abandon you, Robert said, raising his voice slightly for the first time. I was pushed out by my own son. Because you were weak. I was. You were right about that. Robert's admission disarmed Michael. He had expected an argument, a fight, anything but this quiet acceptance. Then why are you here? He asked, his voice quieter. Because I learned that being weak doesn't mean you can't change. These 10 years working here taught me the value of honest work. Every hallway I mop, every bathroom I clean, every polite smile I give the doctors and patients. All this taught me humility. Michael looked at his father's calloused hands. And you think that makes up for 20 years of absence? It doesn't make up for anything, but it taught me that a man's worth isn't in his diploma or the size of his bank account. It's in the honesty with which he lives each day. What a cheap philosophy. Michael tried to keep the scorn in his voice, but there was something about Robert's dignity that unsettled him. Maybe it is cheap, but it's the only one I can offer. Just then, a nurse walked past them, greeting Robert warmly. Good afternoon, Mr. Robert. Mrs. Peterson was asking about you this morning. Michael felt his blood run cold again. Mrs. Peterson? He repeated. The nurse looked confused between the two men. Yes, the patient in room 318. She always asks for Mr. Robert when she wakes up from her medication. My mother is here. Michael grabbed the nurse's arm. Yes, sir. For 3 weeks now. Are you a relative of hers? Michael looked at Robert, who had gone pale. I didn't know you didn't know, Robert said quietly. What's wrong with her? Why didn't anyone tell me? She asked us not to. Said you were too busy with business to worry about a sick old woman. Michael felt the world spin around him. His mother, the strongest woman he knew, had been hospitalized for 3 weeks, and he hadn't known a thing. Is she bad? Robert hesitated before answering. Her heart is tired, son. Very tired. And you've been taking care of her? Not officially, but I stop by when I can. She likes talking about you. About me? She's very proud of what you've achieved. Talks about your business, your travels, the awards you've won. Robert paused. But sometimes when she thinks no one's listening, she cries. Cries? Why? Because she feels she lost her son in the process of raising a businessman. Michael leaned against the wall again, feeling utterly lost. Does she know you work here? She does. Always has. And she never said anything? She made me promise not to tell you. Said you hated me and it was better this way. I didn't, Michael started to say but stopped. The truth was he had hated his father all these years. Can I take you to see her? Robert offered. Michael looked at his father, really seeing him for the first time in decades. There was dignity in that tired face, a serenity he himself had never felt, despite all his success. Does she want to see me? She loves you, Michael. Never stopped loving you. Just like me. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. They walked in silence down the hall until they reached room 318. Robert knocked lightly before opening the door. Elizabeth, I brought you a visitor. The woman in the bed was far frailer than Michael remembered. Her hair, once always impeccable, was white and thin. But when she saw her son, her eyes lit up with an intensity he recognized. Michael, she said weakly. Mum. He approached the bed, taking her hand. Why didn't you tell me you were sick? Elizabeth glanced at Robert, who remained by the door. Because I know how busy you are, my son. I didn't want to be a burden. A burden? You're my mother. I'm just a tired old woman who built an empire and forgot to take care of her family along the way. Michael felt tears burning his eyes. Don't say that. It's true. You became exactly what I wanted you to be, a winner. But along the way, we lost what mattered most. Michael looked at Robert, still standing at the door. I found him, he told his mother. I know. Robert told me you spoke. He's been here the whole time, working at the hospital, taking care of you. Elizabeth smiled faintly. He's a good man, Michael, always has been. I was the one who treated him poorly when things got tough. But he left. He abandoned us. No, son, we drove him away. You with your harsh words, me with my silence. He left because he had no choice. Michael looked at his father again. Why did you come back? Why not start over somewhere else? Robert stepped closer to the bed. Because I learned a man can rebuild his career, but he can't rebuild his family. You two are all I truly have in this world. Even after how we treated you. A father's and husband's love doesn't end, Michael. It can be wounded, it can be rejected, but it doesn't end. Elizabeth squeezed her son's hand. How's your company doing? It's fine. Better than ever, actually. I closed a big deal with Chinese investors today. That's wonderful, she smiled. Robert would be proud. He always said you had a talent for business. Michael looked confused. When did he say that? These past few years, when he visits me. He keeps up with everything about you, reads about your successes in the papers, saves the articles. He's prouder of you than I am, if that's even possible. Michael felt a lump in his throat. Is that true? He asked Robert. Every achievement of yours is a victory for me too, son. Even from afar, even without acknowledgement, watching you grow has been my greatest joy in these hard years. But you said I became arrogant, just like the person who looked down on you. And it's true, but that doesn't lessen my pride. It only deepens my concern. Elizabeth adjusted herself in bed. You two need to talk, really talk, no pride, no grudges, just as father and son. I don't know how, Michael admitted. Neither do I, said Robert. But we can learn. Elizabeth looked at them both, her eyes full of hope and weariness. I've made many mistakes in life, chose success over family more times than I should have. But if I can see you two together before I go, I'll die in peace. Don't say that, Michael protested. It's the truth, my son. My heart is too tired to keep fighting much longer. Robert stepped forward and took Elizabeth's other hand. We'll talk, he promised. Won't we, Michael? Michael looked at them, the two people he had loved most and hurt most in life. Yes, we'll talk. Elizabeth closed her eyes with a smile on her lips. Then now I can rest a little. Father and son left the room and walked through the halls again, but this time the silence felt different. How is she really? Michael asked. The doctors aren't sure. Her heart is very weak. It could be tomorrow, it could be months. And you... How are you handling it? Robert took a moment before answering. I've learned to cherish every day she's still here, every conversation, every smile, every moment she recognizes my voice. Do you still love her? I never stopped. Even when she acted like I didn't exist, even when she treated me like a failure, the love remained. Michael stopped walking. How? How can you love someone who rejected you? Because real love doesn't depend on being returned, son. It's a choice. I chose to keep loving, even when it was hard. And me? Do you love me after how I treated you? Robert turned to face his son. Michael, you may have kicked me out, called me a failure, said you were ashamed of me, but you can't stop me from being your father, and a father loves unconditionally. The tears Michael had been holding back finally fell. I missed you so much, he confessed. I missed you too. But I was just a child. It was your job to fight for me. You're right. I should have fought. I should have been stronger, more persistent. I should have looked for you years ago. Why didn't you? Because I was afraid of rejection, because I believed you were better off without me, because my wounded pride made me think you really hated me. And I did. For a long time, I truly hated you. And now? Michael wiped away his tears. Now I just feel empty, like I've lost half my life pretending I didn't miss you. Robert hesitantly opened his arms, and for the first time in over 20 years, father and son embraced. It was a hug filled with lost years, unspoken words, and repressed love. Can I learn about your life? Michael asked when they pulled apart. What do you want to know? Everything. Where you live, how you've been, what you do in your free time. I want to make up for 20 years in a few days. Robert smiled timidly. It's not a very interesting life. To me, it is. They sat down in a nearby waiting area, and Robert began to share. He talked about the small apartment he'd rented for 10 years, how he'd gone back to studying Mandarin in his free time to keep his mind active. He spoke about co-workers who'd become friends, how he'd found peace in simplicity. You don't have a wife? Kids? No. I could never fully move on. I always hoped that one day I'd come back, that one day you'd forgive me. Michael ran a hand through his hair. I want to forgive you. I want to rebuild our relationship, but I don't know how. It doesn't have to be perfect right away. We can take it slow. How? How about you tell me about your life too? Your dreams, your fears, your achievements. I want to know the man my son has become. And Michael began to speak. He talked about the pressure of maintaining the empire his mother had built, the loneliness of leadership, how lost he sometimes felt despite all his success. He spoke about relationships that never lasted because he didn't know how to be vulnerable, how he'd become exactly the kind of person he despised when he was younger. You became exactly what I feared I'd become, he admitted. Someone who puts success above people. And that bothers you? It terrifies me, because I see my mother dying alone in a hospital. I see you working as a janitor being treated as invisible, and I realize my whole life was built on the wrong values. Robert held his son's shoulder. It's not too late to change, Michael. How can you be so sure? Because you're here talking to me, questioning your choices. That's the first step. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, the next 2 hours passed in conversation, and Michael discovered he'd inherited far more from his father than he'd imagined. Not just intelligence, but also a sensitivity he'd learned to suppress. Robert, in turn, saw in his son a determination and strength he admired, even when misdirected. Can I ask you something? Michael said. Of course. Did you really translate that paper, or was it just a coincidence? Robert smiled for the first time since they'd reunited. I did translate it. They were technical instructions for medical equipment, nothing romantic like what I said. Then why? Because I saw the same cruelty in your eyes that I saw 20 years ago, and I thought maybe, if I shocked you, I could make you think. It worked. Yeah, better than I expected. You planned this? No. I just took the opportunity when it came. I've worked at this hospital for years, waiting for a chance to talk to you. Today was the first day you came here. I came because of the Chinese investors. They wanted to tour the hospital before closing the deal. What kind of deal? Michael hesitated. They want to buy a part of the company to expand into the Asian market. And is that good? Financially? Yes, but they have practices I don't fully agree with. They treat employees like numbers, prioritize profit above all else. And you're still going through with the deal? I have to. Mum's company, our company. It's had some struggles in recent years. This contract will secure our stability for a long time. Robert thought for a moment. Can I give my opinion? Please. Your mother built that company on solid values. She always treated employees well, always prioritized quality over quantity. Are you sure she'd approve of this partnership? Michael knew the answer was no. She wouldn't, but she also wouldn't approve of the company going under. What if there's another way? What other way? I don't know. I just think a smart man like you could find alternatives if he really looked. You think I should turn down the contract? I think you should do what lets you sleep at night. Michael laughed bitterly. I haven't slept peacefully in years. Maybe it's time to start. They returned to his mother's room where she had woken up and was talking to a nurse. How are you feeling today? The nurse asked. Better, Elizabeth replied. My son is here, and that gives me strength. When she saw Michael and Robert entering together, her face lit up. Did you two talk? We did, Michael confirmed, and we'll keep talking. That's good. Robert, can you stay a little longer today? Of course. My shift ended an hour ago, but I can stay as long as you'd like. Wonderful. I want you both to tell me about the plans. What plans? Michael asked. For the future, for our family, for how we move forward from here. Michael and Robert exchanged glances. Mom, I think we're still taking things very slowly. Son, I don't have much time. I can't afford to take it slow. Elizabeth's brutal honesty silenced both men. Do you love each other? She continued. Mom, answer me. Do you love each other? Michael looked at Robert. Yes, he finally said. I love my father. And I love my son, Robert confirmed. Then the rest is just details. Pride, hurt, lost time. They're just obstacles you can overcome if you want to. It's more complicated than that, Michael protested. No, it's not. You're making it complicated because you're afraid of getting hurt again. But life's too short to live in fear. Robert sat in the chair beside the bed. She's right, Michael. We lost 20 years. We can't get that time back, but we can make the most of what we have left. What if it doesn't work? What if we fight again? What if it does? Robert countered. What if we find out we're better together than apart? Elizabeth smiled. Your father was always wise. I was the fool who didn't appreciate it when I had the chance. Don't blame yourself, Robert said, holding her hand. We all make mistakes. Some mistakes cost more than others. Michael sat in the other chair, forming a circle around his mother's bed. How do we do this? How do we rebuild a family? One day at a time, Elizabeth replied. One conversation at a time, one forgiveness at a time. I want to try, Michael said. Me too, Robert confirmed. Elizabeth closed her eyes, but this time with a peaceful smile. Then now I can truly rest. In the days that followed, Michael began visiting his mother daily, always at the time he knew he'd find Robert. The conversations between father and son grew more natural, less burdened by resentment. Robert talked about the books he'd read at the public library all those years, how he'd kept up with the languages he taught, and the plans he'd always had to return to academia when things settled down. Michael, in turn, spoke about the pressure of upholding his mother's legacy, how he had sacrificed relationships and friendships for the sake of work, and how lost he felt despite all his material success. Do you have friends? Robert asked during one of their conversations. I have associates, business partners, acquaintances, but friends? Real friends? No. Why not? Because I learned not to trust people. Because everyone wants something from me. Money, connections, opportunities. And have you ever thought that maybe people approach you that way because that's how you present yourself? Michael paused to think. What do you mean? You present yourself as a successful businessman. It's natural for people to relate to you on that level. But what if you introduced yourself simply as Michael? I don't know who just Michael is. It's been so long since I've been anything but the businessman that sometimes I forget if there's anyone beyond that. There is. I saw it today when you were talking to your mother. I saw it when you laughed at a silly joke I told. I saw it when your eyes lit up talking about a book you read as a teenager. You remember the books I read? I remember everything, son. Every conversation we had, every moment we shared before things turned sour. I remember too. That's what hurts the most. It doesn't have to hurt. It can just be a good memory of what we had and what we could have again. It was during one of these conversations that Michael made a decision that would change everything. Dad, I want you to come home. Robert stopped mid-sentence. What? I want you to come home. To our home. To the family. Michael, I'm not sure if... I am. I'm sure I want my father back. I'm sure I want a chance to do things right this time. What about your life? Your business? Will your friends accept a janitor for a father? My business will have to adjust, and as for friends, well, maybe it's time to make real ones. Robert was silent for a long time. Are you sure about this? Absolutely. What if it doesn't work out? What if it does? Robert smiled, recognizing his own words being used against him. All right, I'll give it a try. There's one more thing. What? I want you to help me with the Chinese contract. How? They were impressed when they found out I had access to a fluent Mandarin interpreter. They want to renegotiate some terms and need someone who understands the nuances of the language. You want me to work with you? I want you to be my partner. Robert was stunned. Michael, I'm a janitor. I don't know anything about business. You're a college professor. And you understand people, honesty, values. That's exactly what our company needs. But no buts. If we're going to rebuild our family, we'll do everything together, including business. Robert looked at his son, seeing in him a determination he recognized from his younger self. And your mother? What will she think? She'll be happy. She always said she wanted to see you professionally fulfilled too. So it's decided? It's decided. When they told Elizabeth about the decision, she cried with joy. Finally, she said, finally, you've realized you're stronger together. Now, you just need to get better so you can see how well our partnership works, Michael teased. I'll do my best, she promised. But the doctors brought difficult news the following week. Elizabeth's heart was weaker, and she would need complete rest. Visits would be limited, and she would have to spend more time sleeping. At least you're together, she told Michael and Robert during one of her last lucid conversations. At least I know you'll take care of each other. Don't talk like you're saying goodbye, Michael pleaded. I'm not saying goodbye, I'm just preparing. And you should too. Robert held her hand. Elizabeth, I want you to know these last few days have been the happiest of my life in a long time. Mine too, she smiled weakly. Seeing the two of you reconcile made all the difficult years worth it. Mom, I'm so sorry, said Michael. I'm sorry for being so hard on you and him. I'm sorry for wasting so much time. Don't blame yourself, my son. You were just trying to protect yourself. We all were. How can I live without you? You'll live with everything I've taught you. And you'll live for each other. That's all a mother can ask for. Elizabeth spent her last days drifting in and out of consciousness, but always with a smile when she saw Michael and Robert together by her bedside. On the morning she passed, they were both there holding her hands. She left in peace, surrounded by the love she had helped rebuild. The funeral was simple, as she had requested. But what surprised Michael was how many people came to say goodbye. Former employees of the company, doctors and nurses from Mercy Medical Center, even some of Robert's co-workers. She touched so many lives, Robert remarked during the wake. More than I ever realized, Michael agreed. That's how I want to be remembered too. Not for the money I made, but for the lives I touched. Then let's work toward that, Robert said. In the months that followed, father and son worked together to restructure the company. Robert brought a human perspective that had been lost over the years, while Michael contributed his business acumen. The partnership with the Chinese investors was renegotiated on more favorable terms for everyone, thanks to Robert's Mandarin skills and his ability to understand cultural nuances. "You're much better at this than you think," Michael said after a particularly successful meeting. "I'm learning, and you're teaching me well. We're learning together." The company began growing sustainably, prioritizing employee well-being and service quality. Michael discovered that leading with ethical values wasn't just more rewarding, it was more effective. "You know what amazes me the most?" Robert said one afternoon as they reviewed reports in the office. "What?" "How much you've changed. Not just with me, but with everyone. The employees respect you differently now." "That's because I learned from the best teacher." "Which teacher?" "You. I learned by watching how you treat people, how you find dignity in any job, how you stay humble even when things improve." Robert smiled. "And I learned from you too." "What?" "That it's possible to succeed without losing your soul. That determination and compassion can go hand in hand." "Do you think Mom would be proud?" "I'm sure she would." Michael looked out the office window at the city below. "Sometimes I feel like she's still here, you know." "She is. In every ethical decision we make, in every employee we treat with respect, in every deal we close for the greater good." "Do you believe in life after death?" Robert thought before answering. "I believe in the life we continue through the people we love. Your mother lives on in both of us, in the lessons she taught, in the love she gave. That's a beautiful way to think about it. It's the only way that brings me peace." 2 years after Elizabeth's passing, Michael and Robert had transformed not just their relationship, but the entire company culture. They created a scholarship program for employees' children, implemented workplace wellness policies, and partnered with organizations helping vulnerable families. "Remember when you said you wanted to be remembered for the lives you touched?" Robert asked during a conversation. "I do. I think you're already succeeding," Michael smiled. "We're making it. Together." "Do you regret anything?" Michael thought about the question. "I regret the lost years, but I don't regret the path we took to get here." "Why?" "Because maybe we needed to go through all that to appreciate what we have now." "Maybe you're right." "What about you? Do you regret anything?" "I regret not fighting harder for our family when I had the chance. But like you said, maybe we needed that separation to learn to value each other. The important thing is that we're here now." "Yeah, we're here now." That night, when they returned home, the same house where Michael had grown up and now shared again with his father, they sat on the porch, as had become their habit. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you happy?" Robert looked up at the starry sky. "Happier than I deserve to be." "What about me? Do you think I'm happy?" "I think you're learning to be happy, and that's even better." "Why?" "Because happiness built consciously is stronger than happiness that just happens." Michael smiled. "You've always been wise." "Not always, but life has taught me a few things." "Teach me too." "I'm trying, every day." "Thank you." "For what?" "For not giving up on me, for coming back, for teaching me it's never too late to start over." Robert stood up and hugged his son. "Thank you for giving me a second chance." "Actually, I think it was both of you who gave me a second chance." "Both of you?" "You and Mom. She was right when she said we were stronger together. She was always right about family." "Yeah, she always was." The end. And what about you, dear listener? What did you think of this story of reconciliation? Have you experienced something similar in your family? Share your story in the comments and let us know where you're joining us from. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories like this one. Thank you so much for being with us.